Welcome back. In this segment, here we are in the next step of our tutorial. As you can see, I have the lightened sketch showing, and last time we talked about modeling the surfaces to give them general form and shape, and so I'm going to build bit by turning on these layers and show you what has been done. So you saw the face last time, the hands are done now, and as we go up we can see I've done the boots, the robe, the tunic over that, and you can see where I've got some very light pixels of the yellow showing past the edges of the robe, or past the edges of the tunic. They tend to make that section of the robe look a different color. That's not going to be important. We're going to be erasing pixels that we do not need next. And then finally the belt layer. So what we're going to do next is we are going to start, since we have our general forms in now we're going to start erasing, and we're going to be getting rid of these extra pixels. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be using my eraser tool, and I want one that is much bigger than that, and I want one with a fairly hard edge because I'm going to be basically giving the form to these different images. So what I'm going to be doing now is I'm going to be cutting out the different areas, and I'm not really worried about the hair at this point. The hair will be done as a later step. What I want is I want the underlying images, and again, to make this a little bit clearer, I'm going to be turning off some of the other layers so that it's more clear what I'm actually getting rid of. And I think I will even make the ink layer a little bit lighter. Let's see what 10% looks like. That looks pretty good. That gives us a much easier, it's much easier to see what we are cutting out. Oops. There we are. Now we're on the right layer. And I'm going to go a little bit past that because the skin is behind that robe, and so the edge of the robe will give us the edge of the skin down there. I'm more concerned about getting the image cut down where there is no obscuring element. I'm just cutting it away from the background. It has to have very simple ears. There's no earlobe here, so I'm cutting that right down to kind of chamfer the edge there. Now what I've done here is I've cut too far in because the head actually comes out to here. There's a couple of things I could do to correct that. I could just undo that erasure, but I kind of already did a little finessing down here. I don't want to go back that far. There's a couple of things I can do. I just need to get pixels back in there. At this point, again, it's not really important exactly how perfect those pixels are. So I'm going to be using the rubber stamp tool. And this looks like a good size brush. I will option click to tell it what pixels I want to copy, and then I will, let's change that opacity up to 100%. I will paint with those pixels later on, or at a different spot. Alright, and then I go back to my eraser, and I'm going to continue cutting out this image. And I'm not entirely happy with the size of the head here. I might make the head a bit larger. Like I said, these aliens, the idea behind these aliens is that they are a hybrid race between humans and those big black-eyed, gray-skinned aliens you often see on UFO programs who abduct people and perform terrible experiments on them. So I might want to make that head just a little bit larger to accentuate the alienness. Now I could erase all of this stuff out here, but there's a much quicker way to do that. I'm going to use a special type of lasso tool. This is called the normal lasso tool. Just lets you select an area and then you can delete it. I don't want to do that. I have a fairly complex shape to go around here so that I can minimize the possibility of a mistake. I'm going to use a special lasso tool that takes its shape from successive clicks to draw an irregular shape. And I'm going to basically select just the head area. Now, if I were to backspace here, oops, that would backspace away the head. So I can go to select inverse, and now I have everything but the head selected, and if I backspace, I leave the head. Unfortunately, I also have the hands on the same layer. I don't want to get rid of the hands, so I'm going to do a really tricky type of selection. I'm going to be holding down a series of modifier keys, in this case the shift, which means I'm going to do something else with that selection, and the option, which would normally subtract, but by holding down at the same time, my selection lasso now becomes an intersect. So everything I select now within that section will intersect with what I already have selected. So now I just have this area around the head selected. And you can see if I eliminate the sketch altogether, I've got that head fairly well cut out. And you can see it's starting to have some feature. It's starting to look like a form. And I'm going to do that with basically the rest of the drawing. I'll do one more section before I end this tutorial, just to show you what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the edges obscuring things. So I'm going to go to the tunic layer, and I'm going to erase from that layer. Now the tunic layer is right here. It is on top of the skin layer. So everything that is on the tunic layer will obscure what is on the skin layer beneath it. So if I go to my eraser tool now, if I erase, you will see that I am erasing off of the tunic layer, but I am leaving everything on other layers untouched. So I am showing the skin underneath. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically cut the edge of that tunic. And you can see right here, this little line right here, that's going to be the robe underneath. So that's going to do the actual obscuring and edge giving to that section. But right here, it's all tunic. So I'm going to cut that around there, and this is a small area. It's not that big a hassle to just erase it manually. And as I zoom out now, you can see that that's given me an edge. I'll go ahead and I'll hide the pencil sketch. That's given me an edge. Let me get rid of some more of that right there. Some of these semi-transparent pixels. And you can see that eventually that's going to give me the illusion of where the cloth overlaps the skin. The advantage of this is that I can go back to the skin layer, and say he didn't have a robe and I just wanted that skin to go directly underneath. I can now go back to that smudge tool I was using before, and I can just work the skin, and I can make it much more even down here. I didn't go into a lot of detail down here because I knew that robe was going to obscure it, but if we didn't have that robe here, now I can do whatever I want with that skin layer. I can smooth it out, and I have not touched that hard edge of the robe layer. So for the next step, I'm going to go through the whole drawing, and I'm going to cut everything and make sure that things are overlapping properly, and we'll see you next time.